Good evening. I call the Whitman-Hanson Regional School Committee meeting of January 10th, 2024 to order. If everyone would join me, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No. Zero. Zero public comment.
Zero? Okay.
Yep. Three. Just want to move right into the presentations.
Yep. Okay, so there's no public comment on listing, so we're going to go right into the presentation of the high school, middle school, after-school programs that we're going on presenting this year.
So I'd like to welcome Chris Gutek, one of our coordinators or our coordinator of the after-school high school program and the new after-school middle school program at Whitman Middle School. The high school for many years have had a successful program for kids who, want to engage in some things after school extra help, culinary, all kinds of fun stuff, but engaged here until 4 o'clock. Last year, Chris took it upon himself to apply for a grant from the state to engage our middle schools, and we went with a program at Whitman Middle, and hopefully this year that grant opportunity will be open that we can do this at Hanson Middle School. And as you can see, some of his students are behind him and they want to share their experience. So Chris, why don't you tell us a little bit about the program?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. So just to give you a bit of an introduction, if you're not familiar with the 21st Century Grant Program, it is a federally funded grant that is administered by the Mass Department of Education, and its focus is to provide enrichment opportunities for students after school, and ensuring that there's equitable access to after-school programming for all students. So we provide programming that at no cost to students, making sure that we also have transportation, so that we have our late bus at the high school and at Whitman Middle School, so that students can participate in after-school programming and have a safe ride home. In both places, our late bus is open to any student who's happened to be staying after school. So we want to make the after-school experience as equitable as possible for all students. Just to give you a little bit of as Mr. Simonak said, at the high school, we've had this program for at least 10 years, and we have approximately 60 students who are enrolled in the high school program. We do things like culinary, and we have our Community Connections Club, which is working on bettering the school climate. We have support classes for students who are getting ready to retake MCAS. And we also have our World Cultures Club, which is bringing our newcomer students and other students and trying to blend and learn about each other through after school. Last year, we took the plunge and applied for a grant for Whitman Middle School to start. We could only apply for one middle school at a time. So we did Whitman last year, and we're going to do Hanson this year. And we had written the grant to accept 65 students into the Whitman Middle program. We have 160 students who are part of the Whitman Middle program. Wow. So we have a lot more interest and a lot more students involved than we expected, which is not a bad thing. So much that we had to expand to 2 late buses just leaving from Whitman Middle, because of the interest in the program. So if that gives us any sense of what it's going to be like when we expand it to Hanson, I think that we're going to have a significant amount of students in our district benefiting from this program. So we have 9 different clubs that are available for students. Most students pick 2 days a week to come. The state guidelines is they want a majority of students to attend 90 hours a year of programming. So we have things like esports, cooking, dance, theater, and you don't need to hear more of that from me. I'm going to let my friends behind me talk to you about that. So we have 10 Whitman Middle students here who are going to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about the clubs that they are involved with as part of the enrichment program. So,
Thanks, Chris.
I'm Sophia. I'm from Whitman Middle School and I'm in 7th grade. I do the club Uplift. It's a safe space for girls to talk about like anything they have to talk about at school, like if it's about like bullying or anything like that. And everyone just like doesn't talk about it to other people and it's just a safe place. And we also get to practice like skincare and like health care and makeup and hair stuff.
Awesome.
So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Sophia. Awesome.
Hi, my name is Azel. I'm in 7th grade. I'll be talking about the musical theater program. The musical theater is a great way for students who enjoy acting or dancing to like explore that passion and to get a look at it. And for kids who already know that they enjoy it, it's a great way for them to not have to pay for other places to go. They can just go after school. It's a lot easier access to a lot of other programs like outside of school that cost a lot of money.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ethan, and I do esports club. I like playing Smash Bros, and esports club is a great way to do it with my friends and stuff. So it's just a fun experience.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Ethan.
you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Asher Robinson. I'm in 7th grade, and I go to esports club, and I enjoy playing with my friends at esports club and doing Rocket League with them. That's why I like esports club.
Thank you.
Thank you, buddy.
Hello, my name is William, and I'm in 7th grade. I go to D&D Club. The reason I like D&D Club is because I get to create characters to adventure through vast worlds with many stories to unfold.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
My name is Jacob. I'm in the 6th grade. I do esports because I like getting better at Smash Bros, and playing with other people in person is a better way to get better at the game.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Holden Robinson. I'm in 7th grade, and I'm in the esports club. And the reason I like the esports club is because I have the ability to be competitive in the game I like, and I have the ability to play in person with my friends.
Nice.
Hi, my name is Ryan, and I'm in 6th grade, and I'm in esports club. I like esports club because I like to play video games with my friends, and I like to play Smash Bros.
Everyone likes the Smash Bros.
Smash Brothers? You got
Check out you gotta check out Smash Bros. Might be playing tonight.
Hi, my name is Julie. I'm in 6th grade.
Hi, my name is Julia, and I'm a 6th grader.
And we do diversity and tutoring. And something that we enjoy in there is because we get to know other people and we get to learn more things.
For different countries and cities, states.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So as you can see, I think that this is a great representation of the students in our Whitman Middle School, and the fact that they were passionate enough about the clubs that they're doing to come and talk to you about them and do public speaking. And I think that it shows great things about what we can offer our middle school students. As I said before, this year we just today signed up for the Zoom meeting about applying for the Hanson money. So that will hopefully we'll be able to expand the program to Hanson next year. And we're really working on having a vertical alignment between the Whitman and the Hanson program, so they're doing similar things, but also really working on building up our enrichment programs at the middle school, so when students come to the high school, they're already familiar with the the program, and it will make an easier transition for them because they're already they're already part of something that they know. They'll know some people. We're part. When I'm not managing the different sites, I'm always looking for new funding sources so that we can expand these programs. And so I have a couple other grants in the pipeline that I'm working on to try to help us expand our reach. Thank you for the opportunity to tell you about our programming, and happy to, if anyone has any questions.
Well, thank you very much. We wanted to say a couple comments to the kids, but they've already left. But thank you, and I love seeing it, happening at the lower grades so that they can get used to it and have something to do.
Absolutely.
If they're not going to be in, the after-school sports or things like that. Yes, Fred?
I did have a couple questions, and I wanted to hear the kids.
I'm going to go get them, because I think it's important.
Because I think they'll, I don't blame them for listening to us. While we're waiting for them, the length of the grant, is there a specific time frame?
Yes, it is a 5-year grant. 5 years.
Okay. And do these guys know, this is you guys, by the way, do you guys know that we have a gaming club here at the high school? So when you get to the high school, there's already a gaming club in place, in addition to the enrichment programs, but a whole gaming club. I don't know if it would be possible to integrate with those kids, maybe, going and seeing what these guys are doing, and, especially like a freshman might be a familiar face for one of these.
Yeah, we don't do any recruiting, Fred, for the varsity. You know what I mean? Against gaming rules.
Big money in esports.
Well, I was going to say that
A good idea.
there's a lot of scholarship opportunities in esports.
Yep.
It's actually one of the programs, surprisingly enough, one of the programs where we're almost required to have from DESE.
Really?
They believe in the ability of students to connect with one another, there's teamwork, the social emotional learning that you get from working competitively. So, and we do the gaming club that we offer at the high school is also through enrichment. So when we have our summer program, when we'll have the middle school summer program and the high school summer program, we should have the opportunity to have them interacting and maybe playing against each other. So that would be a good.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Can you guys beat the high school kids, you think? Easy. All right. Way to go. Thank you.
Yes, Hillary.
One thing just to add on, I think it was really interesting to hear all of the students say, the esports students talk about how they like playing with their friends. I think oftentimes there's a stigma behind video games that you're isolated and by yourself, and so that definitely breaks that stigma. I think that's awesome. To that point, I would imagine that esports is probably the most popular. It might not be. Is that one?
It is not.
Really?
Theater.
What's the most popular?
Theater.
Okay, that makes sense. Is there a cap? I know you said that the grant, you had applied for 65 students and you have 100 and...
We have about 150, 160.
So is there a cap per program? Or do you guys...
The only club that we really put a cap on was the cooking club.
Makes sense.
Because there's just the number of supplies and safety, yes. And we only have so many induction burners. Right. So
So then the other one, so do you envision, is this the first year or the second year?
This is the first year.
So could the number of students increase next year, or is that limited by the grant?
As long as we have the staff to do it, I don't know how much more we would be able to grow, to be completely honest. But there is definitely room for new ideas and new clubs, and absolutely.
Great, thank you.
Glenn?
How is this different than the afternoon clubs? Like, I know Whitman-Hanson Middle School has clubs. My son did our club last semester.
You had to pay for that.
I did. Oh, yeah, I paid for like $40, right?
So that's the
Okay,
big difference.
That's the difference?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, so we're not allowed to charge the students for any of our
Okay.
programs.
And there's transportation.
And the transport, yes.
Oh, and transportation. Very good. Ooh, thanks. Just one more. Smash Brothers, is that a Super Mario game?
Yes.
It is? All right. I think I've seen my son play it. And what's funny is when he'll be playing and I'll be like, what are you doing? He'll be like playing with my friends. And I'm like, you're alone in your room. So this would be great because he doesn't have, a lot of physical friends.
And you walk in and they're having conversations and you're like, who are you talking to?
Who are you talking to? I can hear it from downstairs. I'm like, who are you fighting with?
It's very different when you're in the library at Whitman Middle School and there are 65 students playing
Yes.
esports at the same time.
Do they wear headphones?
No, because
No?
they're
Wow.
they're all playing with people right in front of them.
Okay.
So
Just wanted to shout out to the students. So getting up and speaking publicly like this would be something I would have never, ever done in my whole life. In 6th, 7th, 8th grade, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. So you have I give you a lot of credit for approaching people, the committee, and saying what you said. That's awesome. And continue to do that. That shows great self-confidence. And the guys who talked about the esports things, being with their peers too, just to say, to concur with Ms. Niffen, I think that's very important too, to have that social relationship. And for the committee and the folks in the crowd, we started the 21st Century Grant in 2010. We had it strictly as an after-school program, and then merged it, if you can remember, we had Compass as an alternative program off campus. We merged that with the help of federal funding to bring our students back to our building, so our students were our students, and it has just morphed into an after-school enrichment program, to a summer enrichment program, and since Chris took the ball, to now a middle school enrichment program. And we've talked as the committee about culture and getting kids engaged in school and having some fun. Well, I think the 150 are having some fun in the middle. And
Absolutely.
I think we can merge or grow that to Hanson next year, hopefully with the help of the federal government.
Absolutely.
So thank your teachers
Thank
for
you.
doing what they do too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Round of applause for the kids.
Now you get your pizza and
Now
your
you can
juice.
get out of here.
Bye,
Thank
Chris.
you.
Okay, the next on our agenda is a recognition. And we seem very lucky in our school district that we seem to have a lot of very special people who work in this district. And this time, the recognition is for Dr. Wendy Price. And
So Wendy, would you step up to the podium? I just want to formally recognize you. So Dr. Price is a high school psychologist, one of the best in the biz. She was my go-to when I was a principal and my go-to as a superintendent. She's the former president of the National School Psychologists Association, where she took a year off and we granted her a year sabbatical, which we really don't do, but they paid for it, so it wasn't a big deal. Wendy has brought tremendous programming and professional development to our social emotional learning in the field of students in psychology. We knew she was going to get the Mass Psychologist of the Year. This came out a little earlier, but we wanted to wait to see if she got the national, and she was awarded the National School Psychologist of the Year.
Wow.
And I know Wendy, she represents Whitman-Hanson well and tells everybody what we do here. So we're nationally known, even in Hawaii, right? Continental U.S. and abroad. So Wendy brings our message out there, and then I get to tell her, how can we get more school psychologists? What can we do? Because it's a profession that not a lot of folks are into. So we are coming to a crux of struggling to get folks. But I just wanted you folks to see what we have in our district, in our own buildings, supporting our students. So Dr. Wendy Price.
Thank you. I just want to give a quick thank you to Superintendent Simonak, who has always been, from the time he was my principal, has always been incredibly supportive of me expanding my role from just doing testing to everything that you could possibly imagine. And he's always supported my professional development and leadership journey. And so I certainly couldn't have imagined being honored with this award without the support of the administrators at Whitman-Hanson. And Dr. Chris Jones is another incredible supporter of mine who, just like Jeff, when I would say, I'm thinking about running for president, Jeff was like, how can we make this happen? So I just feel incredibly supported, and like Jeff said, I've traveled around the country and I have colleagues from across the nation, and I'm constantly amazed and humbled and proud of what Whitman-Hanson has to offer to our students and our families with regard to support for mental health. It's a great district, and I've been here since the day I got out of grad school, and I'll retire here because I love the district so much, so
Not too
thank you
soon,
very
though.
much.
Not too soon.
Not yet.
My son's coming in 4 years, so you're going to get to know him.
You know, Wendy, we're very proud of you, and it's so nice to hear the good things that happen at our district. And we'd like to hear more of that and more publicity about the good things that happen and the wonderful people who work here and make it a great place, because it's not just a great place because it is, it's a great place because of people like you. And I want to thank you. And thank you for expanding yourself, because that was something that I did years ago, and it really makes a difference to you, and you get a lot of good friends throughout the country, and it's a really nice experience. But we're very proud of you here, and we want you to know that.
Thank you. Thank you, Beth, I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Wendy.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Okay, so doing something a little out of order that is not on here, I would like to have a moment of silence tonight. One of the former middle school teachers, Mrs. Alice Walker, who was there for many years, teaching 8th grade ELA, and sometimes a 7-8 split, and lived in Whitman for a lot of her life. She passed away last week, so we'd like to have a moment of silence for Mrs. Walker, please. And thank you. Okay, the next is approval of meeting minutes from December 6, 2023. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. We need to do roll call because Chris is on, so Jeff?
Yes.
Fred? Hillary?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
And Glenn?
Yes.
And Jen? Yes.
Yes.
And myself, yes. And Chris?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Now we have the superintendent's report, and he's going to start with initial fiscal year 25. We're kind of giggling on this because this is a first presentation, so we all need to understand first presentations.
So I kind of want to call this a preview, like when you go to a movie, there's a preview, and I don't know if this is going to be an action thriller or as we go forward, a comedy. It's all of the above, but it's budget time in Whitman-Hanson as usual. And what you have in front of you, and I'll go through this, is a preview of what I'm going to present on February 7th. Letting the committee know I was invited formally by the Whitman FinCom to see them at 7 o'clock on February 6th, which I will go, not share the whole presentation that you will receive on the 7th, but I'll give them some data backing what I'm talking about today. So budget season for Whitman-Hanson for us, I met with Mary Beth Carter and Lisa Green in early November to try to talk through budget. And again, we talked about formulating relationships with both towns and seeing where both towns were at. We came out of that meeting, and bless you, and both TAs told me that they were going to earmark a 5% increase of the assessment for next year. And I kind of looked at them and I said, that's going to be really difficult for me, knowing that we're coming off of ESSER and knowing our cost of living raises and steps and lanes as we move forward. Also kind of judging the fact that our inflation in our country is the highest it's ever been in a long time. So this budget that you have in front of you right now rolls in everything that is in district today. Every person, every program, everything. From duty aides to paraprofessionals to non-union employees to service contracts to everything. It is a mirror image of what we have today. This also includes all our staff from ESSER. As we all know, the ESSER cliff was September of 2024. All the staff that we've added over these few years through ESSER are in this budget. This also includes steps and lanes. It was been a tedious process for John, Nikki, George, myself to go through every faculty member, every paraprofessional, every contract employee, and make sure in this budget that we have the correct step, lane, and contract number for next year. So what you will see on the 7th, as far as salaries, are going to be very, very close to what we have today and what are projected for tomorrow. What I can't come into account are anybody that doesn't return, anybody that doesn't return from maternity, anything like that. This also includes an estimate. I'm not going to use the word guess. It's an educated estimate of what our state aid numbers are going to be, which will roll out the last week of January. We won't know that. SOA, the Student Opportunities Act, is supposed to provide us more money. I don't know. I can only guess, and we are taking a lowball guesstimate for this budget presentation because we don't want to overshoot. Last year, we overshot in transportation reimbursement. This year, we earmarked, I think, 70%. If it's up, it's up. If it's down, we're not over budgeting for it. This budget also maintains our current curriculum cycle of highly instructional materials. It also keeps the same number of staff that we've hired to do interventions to help support all of our students. George and Nikki presented in November on our interventions and where we are with our diagnostics and how students are improving. They will again do that in February and then again, or February, March, and then again in June to show the growth of our students and why those interventions are not necessarily important post-COVID, but important for our district and our students as a whole as well. I feel very comfortable in what I'm presenting here today is what the district needs next year. Again, like mirror image to support our academics, our social emotional learning, our contracted services, our out-of-district placements, all special education programs, and et cetera. We are not adding to this any programs to the district next year. There are no new SPED programs. There might be a shift in where those programs go. We are moving a couple of elementary programs to make them a little bit more spread out and equal through the district, but it has no impact on the budget. So going into the numbers, and I don't want people to get really nervous, and these are numbers preliminary in January. And we all know we don't get to a real number until March. But realistically, the budget, and again, there are a couple of numbers up top. The 2024, or the FY24 general fund budget as voted was $60,485,158, okay? There are two numbers below it that includes Whitman Middle School debt and without Whitman Middle School debt. I'm going to use the without Whitman Middle School debt because that's what affects the assessments to the towns, of both towns. So we're looking at an increase or a budget for FY25 of $63,565,154, or an increase of $3,079,996, or 5%. If we go down, and again, that shows the operating assessments of both towns. If we voted that today, which we are not going to, Whitman would have an 11.12% increase of their budget, 6.12% more than has been earmarked in their budget, or 9.98% in Hanson. Okay? Moving down below, this is a 2% increase of the budget, not the 5 that I listed above. So it's still the 63,325, or a 4.70. Oh, excuse me, I'm reading the wrong number, right? 63,325. Or an increase of 28.39, leaving me a shortfall, right, to make that number of 1.630293 in cuts to the district, okay? So if that's the budget we approve, Whitman's assessment would be 5.51, still over the 5.0 that I've been earmarked, or 5.41 in Hanson. The challenge that I have with that, folks, and I'll be very honest, that's under a 2% increase of our overall budget. Show me now in our economy where a budget's going up less than 2%. So that's a 2%. That's still over the earmark that I have. And I'm not taking it out on anybody. I don't want anybody to get it. These are just the numbers that we have as is. A 3% increase is 63,325,154. I'd have to reduce my general fund by $1,1025,300 441. That's a 7.59 increase of the assessment for Whitman, or a 7.11 for Hanson. Okay, that's 3%. That's the number we've shot around in budget subcommittee years ago. That's the number that this committee talked about, that a budget should go up annually close to 3% to keep in line with where the world is. A 4% increase, again, 63, 325, 154. I'd only have to reduce $420,000. The Whitman assessment would be 9.67, and the Hanson would be 8.8. Now, I show you these numbers because they're real, or to the best extent of the guesstimates that we can have. And John's pretty good at guesstimating, we know that. I'm still hoping for some federal, or from state funds in Chapter 70 through SOA, but I'm not holding my breath. But these are the numbers as is. I also saw on the front page of the Express last week what South Shore Voc Tech voted in, or not voted and was proposing as far as an increase. And I know they do their own capital. So even if I take their capital out, they're looking at they're looking at an overall increase of their budget of 5.62%, or an operating budget itself of 3.88. If this committee were to give me 3.88, you'd have a happy superintendent. Okay? If that's what we're going to approve in both our communities for a school that is another regional school that we were part of, I'd be a happy person if you gave me 3.88. I understand that the pie is such that it's going to be divided, and that's why we're going to have conversations. And this is the first iteration of the budget. We'll go through multiple things, and we will also look at it to make sure it's as efficient as possible, making sure that our students have what they need. We talk about a win block, what I need, and I can say what they need in finances and in our community. I did also hear at a regional agreement meeting just the other day that there's override talk in one of our communities. And it was a public meeting, it was out there, but it was an override talk. Nobody's addressed me with that, and nobody's addressed the chair with that would look at, hey, what are we going to look at as far as a potential override, so what do you need? So we will be going through that process. And I also know that other, departments in our communities are asking for more than this. Now, I know our budget, because we're the biggest in both communities, has the most cost. But I have to be fair for my people. If I was the fire chief or the police chief or the librarian, I'd be advocating for my department, and my department might be presenting an 8% increase, which is really only $60,000 in salary. But I have to advocate for my 400-plus employees and 4,000 students that we have in district, out of district, and all over the place. So that's what I've put together with the team to show you where we're at financially. The piece of this is that includes everything we've added through the past 3 years post-COVID, and you have seen progress of our students academically and socially. This budget doesn't include any of the grants that we have through special education, through Title I, Title II, Title III. This doesn't include those grants, and we employ quite a few staff members through those grants as well. We don't talk about that sometimes, and we do, but we focus in on the assessment. But the communities both need to know that we hire people. The Fed gives us a lot of money. We get money, and we employ that. If that ever goes away, and this is George's challenge sometimes with doing some of the grants, we hire a teacher at such and such a salary, they start to build, but the grant starts to depreciate. So we hire a teacher at $65,000, the next year they make 66. The grant was supposed to pay 65, and the Fed gives us 55. So we don't get rid of the teacher because we need the service, so the LEA budget has to absorb that, and George doesn't know those numbers till May or June. So we're doing some of these things as they ebb and flow, and just like we saw this year when the governor's budget came out the second week of August, or the first week of August, we all approved a budget in May, and that changed some of the numbers. So when we present this, as we project through, some of these are hard. I know what my salaries are for my staff. That's not going to deviate. And I know the amount of people that I would want. This committee then takes the charge and say, this is what we can afford. So Jeff, make the cuts educationally to make sure that the students can remain in good standing and receiving the services, both academically and social emotionally, that they need going forward. And that's going to be the conversation that we've had I've been down, this is 6 in a row from your 6 budgets. It's been since 2010 and since 2003 for George. Every year, we end up at a spot, and we somehow make it work, okay? There have been some really lean years. I don't know if this is a lean year or not, but this is what we have, a 2% increase, a straight across the board, we're looking at a 5% increase. I know that's high. I get that. If we go 2, we go 3, we go 4, that's going to be the conversations we have with our FinComs, with our communities, with the school committee. What I don't want to see is regression. The task of this administration since 2018 was to get kids from A to Z, and we're halfway there. Wait, I'm losing. Our curriculum is highly instructional curriculum. It's outstanding. We didn't have that. We didn't have adjustment counselors when I got here. We didn't have full day K when I got here. We have a lot of these things to move our district forward. And if I'm asking for a 3% or a 3.5% increase of the budget, maybe in 4 to keep that in line, I think that's an appropriate ask in January. That might be different in March when we vote that assessment, but that's where we are now. These are the real numbers. And I'd be very curious to see, and I hope we can have that conversation with both our select boards and our FinComs when we get to see the budgets that have been rolled out by the town of Whitman-Hanson. And I think that would be an ask for the school committee to see the budgets when they do roll out, because we've never necessarily seen formally the budgets, just an earmark. So that's what I have for you. I'm open, and this is brief too. We will have all the backup, we will have all the sheets of paper, the multiple trees that we'll go through, so we can dive in and we can justify our programs, where we're at. You can see where the salaries adjust, and how we support our kids. This is a $63 million budget is a very intense piece to put together with a lot of moving parts. We mentioned before, and I'll mention again publicly, that this year we've had a lot of folks out on long-term illness. I can't budget that. So John's put some more into the budget for this year. What the folks out there have to understand, and I know PD and fire are different in a way. If I'm a police officer and I call out sick and somebody covers my shift, it's overtime, and there's a separate line item for overtime. But guess what? They'll always fill that shift, even if they go in the red. There'll always be somebody there, I believe. I don't think they ever go without any officers or any fire personnel on call. I'm the same. I fill somebody in with a substitute. I have to have somebody in those classes. You folks expect, and parents expect, to have a teacher or an adult in front of their children, and sometimes that gets costly. It's $100 a day for a substitute right now here. I can't get people like that. And a long-term sub, it's $150. I get giggled at because I have folks who are like, I can go work somewhere else for $220 a day. So again, the long-term illnesses, I'm paying the teacher their sick leave until that is, so I'm just going to use a maternity, 8 weeks, or parental leave, 8 weeks, so that's paid. And now I have to have somebody being paid here. And that maybe would be at $200 or $225 a day. And sometimes this goes 12 weeks, or if somebody is ill, chronically ill, that might be longer. Those are the hard parts of this budget that are very difficult, but it adds up to more than $100,000 to $200,000. It's not 20 bucks. So those are the nuances within you're going to see in the budget. You might be seeing some different numbers that you have seen in the past, because again, when the 4 of us went together, we actually looked at actuals instead of what we budgeted for the year before. We've never, especially in our sublines, have always been low. And with the economy the way it is, I'll be honest, anybody want to teach English? I'm looking for a long-term English sub. I can't get anybody. Nobody's applied. I used to have 30.
Transfer over, Hillary?
You know? So I mean, again, those are the pieces, and I haven't come to the committee to say, let's raise our rates. But when I'm at a conference or whatever, we're not getting people out there to service our children unless they are being compensated fairly for that. So again, we'll go into more detail on the 7th, and we'll continue to do that probably twice a month until we come up with an assessment. But these are the numbers. I'm not shocked by these numbers. I think they're pretty fair for what we service our students with. The number might be big, but if you look at a percentage of that, That's what your house budget might have gone up 3% this year. At work, your budget might have gone up 3%, maybe even more. When I look at Mr. Hickey's budget going up 5.6%, that's an honest number. I think George read in the paper today, Hingham's got a $2.6 million shortfall.
And they just had an override.
And they just had an override. I'm following that along. So we're going to be continuing to talk, but this is the initial number that you can start to digest and start to think about when we come through these conversations, where do you want our students to be? And what do you want to see for them? The towns have been very supportive. I will not knock the towns. We've gotten playgrounds. We've gotten a lot of what we need. And I think that's important. But those needs continue to grow, and it costs more and more every year. So, any questions on what I presented?
Fred?
One question. I know last year we took $500,000 from E&D, and I know the towns used some one-time money as well.
Yep.
How is that reflected in this? Is it
The E&D, there's no E&D in here.
Right, no, but the $500,000 that we took last year went into the overall budget.
Yep.
So it's basically reflected in the base. So while the assessment to the towns was negated on the 500K, but now it's added on to the, so it's almost like a double whammy.
Well, the final number is the final number.
Right.
They got to pay for the final, your revenue is here, your expense is here. We took 500 in revenue, plopped it here. That number didn't change, and that increased. So yeah, that's the increase there.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Sure.
That,
It's not
so
in
we
there.
know how that number, those monies were accounted. That's my only question.
Anybody else? Dawn?
Not a question, but comment. When I think of our budget, I think of two separate things, right? Your contractual salaries, which are contractual, and then expenses, which are variable, right? Some expenses, maybe there's leeway to level fund that expense, but other expenses you have no control, and they may have gone up more than 5%, right? We're buying things, we're going out to stores and buying supplies. So when I think of what you're going to present, if there's a way to sort of reflect what the contractual percentage increase is as a piece, and then, of course, the expenses will vary line by line, maybe, right? Depending on consumables and technology and maintenance and so forth. So I imagine that's going to be a lot of work. Yeah, so.
And actually, we started doing that just because when I talked to Mary Beth and Lisa, I know my salary lines were going to be the biggest because we also negotiated the contract. And again, the challenge here is in our contracts, we can't predict, well, we can predict, and we're doing a better job now of predicting who's going to make the big jump. Step 10 to 11 is a big jump. Step 20 to 21 is a big jump. Step 29 to 30 is a big jump. All the other ones are very incremental. So, you can start to track who's here and who's going to be coming up to that incremental leap. Again, the challenge we're having is I used to be able to hire a teacher at step 1 coming in, and now they're negotiating. And now I'm negotiating, and that's never happened before. People were just happy to have a job, and now I'm negotiating a step 1 or a step 2 salary. I had this conversation with someone that we had to replace the other day. They're like, well, I can get this here, and so we're in that process. And again, that throws off our budgeting because, we used to say, and I've said this before, 2 teachers retire, I can hire 3 easy. Well, that's not so easy anymore. Now it's becoming more almost, apples for apples. So we'll be showing that as well. So thank you for saying that, because you're right. Those services are unpredictable.
All right, Glenn, and then Hillary. Glenn?
You want to go first?
No, go ahead.
It's a quick question, just about the hiring thing. Is it a supply problem? Is there not enough people applying, or?
Yes.
And then because of that, they have way more leverage?
Yes.
Because?
Yes.
Okay.
And it used to.
So they're all going to get a job, they just might not take a job.
Correct. So back in the day, and George was a social studies guy, I'm a social studies guy. When I applied for my job, there were 175 people, pretty much guys, applying for a social studies job.
Yep.
And in English, I used to get 40, 50, 60 applicants. This was 6 years ago.
And now you're not getting
Not
any?
one.
That's crazy.
Not one.
Why?
Do you want to be a teacher?
A lot of reasons.
No, but if I was coming out of college and that was the degree that I followed, I would.
But it used to be, but it used to be a long-term
Okay.
sub position. People are like, oh my God, I can get my foot in the door. But now it's like, I'll just wait to see if it's a real posting.
Okay.
But that's it. And our fear as we go forward, especially in our specialist positions, and we had a resignation today from a severely special needs position. I'm going to be in trouble to try to find those teachers. They're not there. I look at retirements I'm going to have for some of my high school physics and chemistry teachers. Nobody's doing that. I can go work at Gillette and make 7 figures.
Yep.
You know, people still come in to teach, and every person that we've interviewed and I've hired, I will say, because I've enjoyed my education experience, it's the best job in the world. It really is. Teaching kids is outstanding.
Is there a mandatory retirement age?
No, there's not. And you know, and I think once we get post-COVID, people start getting into it. Maybe you're going to see it again. We did see quite a few applicants, people at a career fair last year, and there's different ways to hire. But people are definitely more selective than they ever have been. Going into an interview with the superintendent. It never used to be like, I'm giving you a job. This is what I give you. Bachelor step 1. Awesome. Welcome. They're like, well, can we do this? I did this. So it's just a little bit different.
Okay. Thank you.
I help?
I lost my train of thought. One thing, this isn't my question, but one thing, there was an article, I think the beginning of this year or the spring, where across the country there's more retirements than applications for licenses for teaching. So there's not the fulfillment there to work it out. One thing that I think I would like to see in the budget presentation, Jeff, is a focus on the EL population and the staff that you are required to hire to service that population. I think that I've absolutely had conversations with people, FinCom, select board members, about the staff that we've added on, and there's a misunderstanding about it's required that we have a certain number of staff members to service that population, and how that population has significantly grown over the last 3 years. And it's not like students are in classes of 10 and that's just how it is. You know, if you're hiring two teachers, because they're teachers, they're EL teachers, they're servicing more students. I think I remember asking Nikki, like, the ratio is not good between our EL students and the staff members who service them. So I think that that's a point, because that is a part of our population that is increased, that requires additional services, that is one of those variable aspects. And it could swing down the other way, right? We could have a decrease, or it could really continue to increase. And just explaining that and having those numbers there would be helpful.
Absolutely. So my peers along the Stoughton, Abington, Rockland belt have seen a dramatic increase of EL students. The one thing we're not being affected by right now are any of our migrant students or homeless students coming in. We don't have any housing,
Not yet.
but our next door neighbors are getting that. That is, and I won't go into it until we have it, but that's going to be a initial fiscal drain on us. And by the time the state catches up, because that's my colleagues in Stoughton and Rockland are dealing with 300 to 400 plus students.
Because they have hotels, motels, and we don't.
Yeah, there was an article in the Globe, and it had each town and how many students. I mean, you look at Kingston and what happened in Kingston. I mean, Kingston Elementary had to house, or their elementary school added 40 more students, and we're talking about an elementary school that has like 2 classes per grade.
Correct.
And they didn't have, they didn't have things to put that there. So just explaining that, and that's not something in our control either. And making sure that's clear and out there.
Absolutely.
And one thing I think everybody needs to note also is we only have officially 3 retirements this year.
Yeah.
3. And they're all at the high school. So.
They're what?
3 retirements.
Oh, okay.
In the district this year. That's it.
Coming up?
This isn't a big year. I might have more at the end of fiscal. So contractually, teachers have to let me know if they're going to retire in 25 by a year ahead.
A year and a half.
But for this fiscal budget, I only have 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yep. So.
Okay. So we'll keep continuing. This is the springtime in Hanson.
Okay, so makeup day.
Next one. So, as most folks know, we had a winter wind episode because we don't get snow anymore. We get 50-mile-an-hour or 50-degree days with 70-mile-an-hour winds. And I didn't have power at Indian Head and Hanson Middle School, and I wanted to keep the district. Usually I would make the call for everyone, but with the high school and the preponderance of most of our buildings with power, we postponed school at Indian Head and Hanson Middle School, and I'm proposing that we have a Good Friday a half-day on, why did I put 5? It's not May 29th, Jeff. It's March 29th, as a half-day, as a makeup day. Talked to the association, I've talked to the principal, I haven't talked to the teachers yet, but I think they're in line with that. They would come to school on Good Friday. Students, it's a school day, but I also know for many of our students, it's a religious holiday. They wouldn't be earmarked or marked down for not attending that day. We had to do that last year at Hanson Middle when we had our damage from the storm. So that's the day I propose for the committee to motion and approve, hopefully.
You need a motion for that?
I do.
I'd make that motion. Second.
A second? Okay. So we have to do a roll call. Any questions, any more questions on it first, a discussion? Yes.
Can I say one thing? My kids said that that was their favorite day of the school year, all year long. So, and I know there was a lot of apprehension about the kids being in school without power. And even like my basketball team and soccer team were like, it was so fun. Like, so kudos to the staff and everybody, because the kids, my students, the feedback was not, they were nervous or scared or anything. They were psyched and had a great day.
Good.
So.
Very good. Okay, anybody else? Okay, Fred?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
Michelle? Yes. Glenn?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
And Chris? Yes. And me, yes. So unanimous?
So next up is vape sensors. So we all know, just making sure the committee all knows what vaping is, right? Vaping is now an epidemic proportion amongst our probably middle and high school students, but primarily high school students. So SRO Derek Harrington came to me probably at the beginning of November after attending a workshop for SROs, and he said there's a company called Verkada that is willing to let us use some vape sensors free for 4 months to see if, we like them, how we want to use them. So met with George, met with operations, met with technology, met with Chris Jones, the high school principal, and we decided to take the 4 vape sensors and put them in 4 bathrooms in the building. To see if they work, because we've heard that they don't really work. Well, they do really work. On my phone, I have a vape sensor indicator that starts every day at 6:45 when students come here, and sometimes goes off at 6:30 when students are leaving here at night. The vape sensor picks up a certain amount, what is it, 80?
The threshold is set at 80%.
Is it 80?
So that'll pick it up if they sense the expulsion of air from the vape.
We can also track the amount of carbon dioxide that's in a bathroom, so if there's 20 kids hanging out in a bathroom, it will also register that as a sensor. We are averaging 38 to 40 hits a day in those 4 bathrooms. We have 10 bathrooms in the building. We've only put them in 4. What I've asked the principal to do is to continuously gather data and start educating parents. We're not in a gotcha business right now. Hey, we gotcha. The challenge with a vape, and I've explained this, I think, before, is a student will have a little cartridge, looks about like that, looks like a USB cord or thing, hits it, puts it in his pocket, and it's gone. Now, the sensor will pick it up, and it'll come up on my phone as a vape thing. It goes on George's phone, it goes on Chris's phone, it goes on Dave's phone. But by the time we're getting down there, the person's gone. So we've actually had the cameras outside the bathrooms take a picture of or hit when students are exiting for the next minute and a half, just to see. Now, we haven't actually had any conversations with any students. So we have an idea of where kids are at and what bathrooms kids tend to gravitate towards. But the focus for us right now is to show parents and try to get parents on board to say, this is an issue, that your students are doing this in school because we're getting 40 to 50 hits a day out of just 4 bathrooms. And again, I laugh because it starts, the first kid comes down and they go to the bathroom and they take the hit. It's not good for students. We will work with Whitman-Will to try to educate. Again, this isn't like smoking a cigarette in a bathroom where back in the day, a kid was smoking a cigarette, the smoke residue would be there, you'd know they were smoking. Not like smoking marijuana, but there are a preponderance of the time, there's THC in the vapes that the students are having, which is also challenging to prove because they go into a pocket or wherever on a student. So we will continue to do this. At the end of February, early March, when Verkada comes back and says, do you want to purchase them, we're going to have to make a decision on what we want to do. They are working. I mean, we are gathering data, but I wanted to share that with the committee because these are our students. They are doing it. It is happening. It's not the same kid every minute. It might be, but there are a lot of that. There's a lot of that going on. And what I don't want to do is go into police mode, and we've talked to the high school principal about that. I don't want to lock bathrooms up and have kids sign in and out of bathrooms. And I don't know, back in the day when you were in high school, that happened in my high school. You know, they locked the bathroom up because kids were smoking in this one, so you had to go down by the office and sign in. There was a teacher there with a clipboard, and you got to go to the bathroom and walk out. That's not how we want it. That's not a good culture for our school. However, we do have an issue, and we're trying to figure out how other schools address it, schools that have been using these detectors longer than we have, through education and prevention versus consequence and punishment.
Yeah, and I would say that I'm not sure to the extent that parents and the community knows how rampant this is. And if you look at it from the perspective of when cell phones first came into schools, you know, it was stop it, stop it, stop it. Then the other train of thought was, well, how do we inform, how do we use it properly, how do we handle this? So if you look at the vaping epidemic that's happening, one, it's not just Whitman-Hanson. It is everywhere. I mean, everyone that I talk to, every administrator I talk to, a lot of them have these sensors. And the voluminous amount of hits you get really would cripple. You would need a whole different staff in order to handle this from a punitive aspect. So then it has to change to education, and it has to change to like sort of outreach and let parents know that, hey, this is happening. I don't know who all the kids are, but it keeps going off, so it keeps happening. It even happens, I will say this, on the weekends it happens all the time. So what I've done is now I've tracked who was in, what group was in. Is it a dance group? Sure. Is it a elementary, middle school? Is it the old colony, yada, yada? Sure. Because that's where it's at. All ages, all kids, all styles. So we're trying to get Dr. Jones to talk with his parents and to let parents know, have the conversation at home. Like, talk to your kids, like, help us out, because it's not healthy, and that's where we're looking for it now. Do I know the long-term budgetary implications if we keep this going? I don't. Do we have a handle on the punitive handbook pieces of it? No. But every school in Massachusetts, at least, is handling and battling this very same thing as soon as a sensor goes in. So we're trying to use it through the high school right now to appeal to, hey, talk to your kids. Let's see if we can help from that perspective, because it is a health issue.
What?
Two questions. So the students have no knowledge of these, correct?
They might by now.
Yeah.
I mean, some might.
And then they'll probably try to disable them or do something to them, right? So, and second is, a perfect world, educate the problem away, right. But if they have a physical addiction, there's no way to educate away a physical addiction.
Good point.
As much as you want to. The answer is consequences. That's it. It's the only way you're going to get rid of it, consequences.
Right, so we're not I'll be completely honest with you, we're not at the point with the high school administration yet to say who's watching it every day, all the time, so when that goes off. Because I get here in the morning at 6:15, I set up the music and we do bus duty, and by 6:20, it's banging. It's banging.
Sure.
And the amount of manpower or womanpower or human capacity that you would need is not something we've put in this budget presentation yet, or is not something that we've had yet.
Consequences of that, once someone faces those serious
Sure,
consequences,
I agree.
then it will absolutely decrease, because
Right.
they don't want those consequences.
Right, and I agree, and that's some of the things that we're talking about
I know
now.
That's not what
Right.
the way we'd like it to go, but that's the only way you're ever going to do anything about it.
And that's one of the options that's discussed not only here, but all around the Commonwealth right now, because that's where it's at.
Fred.
I'd love to know from some of the other schools that are using this, and I agree, consequences are where it needs to be. But also, to issue a consequence, you have to be 100% sure.
Correct.
And I got to think that that's something that's very difficult.
What happens is if it's a one hit, so let's say it goes off at 80%, right? So 80% is the threshold. So if it goes off at 84, or if it goes off at 107, you will get the cameras that then go 10 seconds before and 10 seconds after the incident until it dissipates. But in that time, you might see the one student that was in there, but that might be the student that went in right after the student who did it left. Or you might see the 15 students that come out. You know, so then it's like, okay, who's chasing that down? How are we chasing that down? How are we doing it? So we're trying to work with Dr. Jones and work on some of his hallway duties to where we put the hallway duty people in that area, so if they have it on their app, they can check it, and that's some of the things we're trying to work with at this point in time. But it is very difficult because 7 people might walk out, but the sensor went off because of one. You know, and when you get information, it's interesting then to say, oh man, what are we doing with all this information, and how are we going to manage it?
The vendor would have a list of references and know who's been successful.
They do, and they gave it to us. We met with them last week.
Yeah.
So Chris and Dave are actually, and Abington's one. The Abington uses a different vendor, so we were in contact with Abington as well.
Yeah.
But, I mean, for my purpose, I want to see if they work, because I was told they don't. But they pick up something.
Right.
But again, we were former administrators. It's very hard. So we all go into, you know, we go into an area, this goes off. Which one of us did it? Because it's this big. You know?
Actually test it yourself.
You know, and it's really hard.
Yeah, so, you know, maybe they can tell you, you know, what protocols, so like you can
Correct.
ask Gavin, what are you doing in order to catch people, or in order to be able to, you know, define who it is. And, you know, hey, if they already have a system down path that's working.
Yeah, I'm not afraid to steal from people. Nope.
Do we have an idea of the cost?
So these detectors are about $3,500 a pop.
Yeah.
So if you did 10 bathrooms,
30 grand.
it's almost the cost of a robotics program.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Hillary?
That was going to be my question, the cost. Excuse me, because as a high school teacher, I understand educating students, but I don't see the point in paying this kind of money if you're just going to educate. I think the education needs to happen when they're younger. I think a lot of students who are addicted to the vapes come into the high school addicted to the vapes, and so it starts when they're in 6th grade, 5th grade, 7th grade, whatever it may be, when their friend who they trust and care about is like, hey man, try this, or hey girl, try this. To Fred, to your point about how do you tell, I mean, in my high school, if I'm on hall duty and I see 3 girls in the bathroom, I go in the bathroom and they all come out and they all get searched. Why are the 3 of you in the bathroom? Because it's a school and you can search a student if you have cause, and that would be cause. What are we doing in the bathroom? So it is easier. It's not like searching, you know, out in the real world, I suppose, which, you know, that would be my concern. I think that consequences for students, you know, are really important, because what better place to learn about consequences in a high school or something like this? Like in my school, we have ISS. So if a student gets caught vaping, they get a day or 2 in ISS.
Yeah, sure.
Not horrible to them; it's horrible, but they do perhaps think twice.
Sorry, what is
ISS
in school
suspension.
In school suspension, got it.
You know, I know here we don't have that, and so that was, we talked
We
about
do,
that.
we do,
We
we
do
do.
now.
Right.
Because in policy 7, we talked about it.
Yeah, we put it
Didn't,
in.
and that was
Right.
one of the.
And I just want to be clear that there are policies in place for students who vape.
Yes.
But when we did this pilot, it was a 4-month pilot. So we said, let's check it out and see what happens. And in seeing what happens when you have a sensor that goes wild continuously, it is different than when that person on hallway duty sees 4 people go in and says, hey, what are we doing here? And smells bubble gum from the vape and does something. So the question is now in this part of pilot, what are we doing with this pilot? We've noticed with this pilot, because there's been no budgetary decisions made, that we have a serious problem. So at this point in time, we're saying we're trying to get the word to parents to say, hey, help us out. This is what we've uncovered. This is what we noticed. I completely agree, having been the former middle school guy, that vaping's big time going into grade 5 and 6. So then the budgetary implication comes on, because is it best done with consequences at middle schools instead of high schools, so you can consequence at an earlier age, they can change their behavior, and you can move forward. But we're not at that stage yet. But we felt it was pertinent to the students and the families to say, hey, this is what we got, this is what you're doing, let's try to at least let everybody be aware, so if you're having a discussion at the home, you can at least know what to discuss. And that's the stage we're at now.
Are students since these sensors have been in place, have students been caught and given consequences with vapes, or are you guys kind of just saying,
No,
let the
no,
sensors?
so we're not using the sensor data.
No, I know, but
Right.
have students been caught
Yes.
vaping? Okay.
Yes.
Traditional way.
Right.
Yeah. The old school, all duty, you walk in and.
Right.
And is this, so the vapes release a different kind of vapor, I suppose?
Yeah.
No, that's why they're called vapes. What about dab pens? Those emit like a stronger smell, right?
The threshold is set for,
Familiar with a dab pen?
I don't really know.
So it's like a vape for marijuana.
Oh, yeah. That also goes off, right.
Will it pick up that as well?
It
Those
also-
are easier to detect though, because they definitely have more pungent smell.
Right, but it also detects that. So it detects anything that you have that emits the mist or whatever is emitted. And it even goes so far, because we've had to say, like, why did that bathroom have a humidity change from 60 to 78? Because this detects 13 different things. And some of it is hot air. Like, some of it's just hot air. Like, there's a bunch of kids in the bathroom and hot air goes bananas. Some of it is humidity changes over the weekend. So we've had an issue where we had an issue with the hot water and the humidity rose, so that's how we did it. So, I mean, they're very sophisticated. We just haven't got to the point of, during this pilot, of exactly our plan of action, other than, yeah, we got a problem and we want to let people know about it so we can try to get at least conversation going.
Data collection.
Do they
Yes.
nail you with a subscription fee on top of purchasing them?
I'd have to look. Again, I took the free, and
Yep.
now let me see what the sales pitch is and what we want to do with it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, Steve?
George, so we're at the first stage, which
Yeah.
is you want to appeal to the parents.
Right.
That's the first stage.
Yeah.
The rest, you'll.
Yeah, if we were to keep the product and move forward and have a
Yeah,
budgetary
move forward,
implication for it, then obviously, then we're looking at consequences and things. But then I think the discussion has to happen is, one, how many can you afford and where do you want to put them? And then what happens at the different levels? Is it middle school first? Is it both? Is it a,
Certainly. Having that discussion with parents, would it be sent out in an email with some data for them to look at?
Yeah, so Dr. Jones has his plan is that he puts out his weekly Panther press release that goes to everyone, and so that's what his method of communication is right now with the parents, to just say, hey, here's some resources, here's some things.
He sent something to the high school parents already about
Yeah,
it.
yeah, a couple of, it was probably about 3, 4,
Yeah,
maybe
I
3.
did get something, a
Yeah.
great email about that, so something's come out.
Yeah.
Yes, Rick?
Okay. Maybe follow-ups with that or so, or, even feedback from the parents.
Right.
Encourage them to have conversations with their kids, disciplinary actions at home if need be.
Correct. Yeah. We just want to appeal to a wider audience so that we can get some help. Yeah.
Or even educate, because some parents don't know what vapes is. I mean, remember when I brought them all here and I showed you folks the difference, what they look like, back from the e-pen that was that big to the vape that's this big. So, I mean, parents don't know, and that's okay, but we need to educate them, we need to help them out.
Just real quick, if you could find out if they make a combination unit that would be smoke, fire, along with that, I'm just thinking of the middle school.
Yeah.
Who knows, if it's the same type of cost as the smoke sensors that they've already, that they'll design in the building.
That's a good point.
And we can get that, have them all put in.
Yeah, like smoke and carbon dioxide. You can get smoke, carbon dioxide, vape.
Find out on that end,
Yeah, sure.
we'll ask the
absolutely.
architects.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes, Doug?
I wanted to thank Officer Kevin Harrington, Derek Harrington,
Yep.
bringing it forward, because he cares about the students, right? So we're doing this. Why do we care about vaping, right? We care about the students, and it falls under health and wellness. So it's an important initiative, and I just can't help but think, under the umbrella of health and wellness, we're really focused on this. And I'm going to refer back to our last meeting, and we had the High School Student Advisory Council here. And they gave feedback on a survey, and they talked about the start time. And their voices were, they were requesting the start time to be pushed back. So if we're talking about science and vaping and health and wellness, I hope that we as a collective will keep in mind still what our high school students are telling us to. Because it's not good for students to be vaping, and it's not good for students also to be following a schedule that science tells us they shouldn't be.
I just have one other question. How many more months do we have of this?
End of February.
So you're midway through January. Do you think formally telling, I wonder if you formally told the students, hey, we have vape sensors in the bathroom. If
They
you would
do
see-
know.
Yeah,
They know.
Do they know? Do
Oh, they know. My kids are in the school, they all know.
No, but like, I guess like formally telling them to see if it goes down.
Yeah, I'd have to, I'm not sure if Dr. Jones has done that, to be honest with you, if I'm being completely honest, but I can check on that. Yeah.
Right? It might prevent some students
Right.
from, because they might be afraid of a potential consequence.
Sure. No,
Some
that's-
students,
yeah.
it's not going to change, but that would be
Yeah, absolutely.
a suggestion.
Can I get some feedback on that? Because I have a high schooler too, and she knows in class, kids are vaping right in class, so you're gonna put a sensor in the classroom, so if they know it's in the bathroom, well, then I'm gonna go around the corner and gonna do it not in the bathroom. It's just gonna happen.
Oh, Steve, sorry.
I just want to say, in-school suspension at Whitman-Hanson's been here since at least 1980. I won't say anymore. It was the old time when the calculus book showed up at the in-school suspension.
All right, thanks. Mr. Stanbrook, a little bit of FY24 data for us, please.
Thank you. Good evening. I tried to put the document number at the top for, I think at the last meeting, there was one member that wanted to see that, so Mr. Boyce, I tried to put document 1 and document 2 on top of because there are 3 documents. I forgot about the multicolored one, so sorry about that. And just on the agenda, it says general fund revenue updated. There should have been revenue and expenditures in there, so if it's okay for the chair, I'd like to talk about expenditures as well as revenue. Is that okay, Beth?
Yeah.
Is that?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. So the first, document 1 is the revenue update for the first quarter. These are all numbers through September 30th. We talked about this at the last meeting. Nothing's changed since then. We talked about that the Chapter 71 transportation reimbursement was going to be less. And we also talked about homeless transport was going to, because of an overpayment, that was going to be less, but we also said that interest income was going to be higher. So this is kind of where we are right now. Again, I wish I was further along and could give you the second quarter because we're in January, but I haven't been able to get this. This is, I'm 3 months behind, 4 months behind, but at least I'm catching up. So adding those things up, we're not sure where we are, but this is what we have for revenues going into the at the end of the first quarter, 15.195 million, and again, most of that is the operating assessments that we've gotten in, and Chapter 78, obviously. Again, in the second quarter, I'm going to be updating it as soon as I can. As soon as I have it, I'll be passing that out. Document 2 is what we used to get out of Munis. Would be the expenditure report. It has this again. This is through September 30th. This is a very time-consuming document to come up with because it's all done by hand until we have Munis up running. These are the columns that used to be on the Munis report: encumbered, budget, transfers, revised budget, where we are through September 30th on spending, encumbered for '24, available budget, and then budget availability in the last column. These are the old codes because that's the way the budget was voted. Back in May, we used the old Munis codes so that's why you look. Well, some of the I shouldn't say that. Yes, all the old codes, the way it was voted back in May, are on this sheet. When we get Munis up and running, you're going to see different codes, and because these old codes don't exist anymore. So it's trying to put the new code spending into the old code amounts. Again, this is a 8-pager, and you can take a look at it. It has every line item that would be on the old report. If anyone has any questions or you want me to
John, is
highlight
this
anything.
the report now that she's working on now to try to get on Munis?
So
Is this-
we have the
I know the cafeteria one is on. Is
yeah.
this the next?
This is the next one, but we're working on the warrant, but right now, that's not this report.
Oh, okay.
It would be the warrant, so again, warrants are the ones that you sign every meeting,
Right.
are hand compiled
Right.
on Excel spreadsheets. We're trying to get that back onto Munis first, so that we don't, we can stop having to do a spreadsheet every time we try
Okay. Very
to
good.
pay a
Thank
bill.
you.
That takes a long time. But yes, this will be the next thing. Once we get the data in, then we'll be able to run the report. And I think a couple meetings ago, I showed you what it would look like when it does run. I had a budget out of Munis in the test that I passed out. So that's the expenditures through September 30th. The total is $12.7 million. Just on the last page, under number 9100, function code number 9100, the total tuition to mass schools, a little bit above that, it says district-wide sped tuition to other schools. There's nothing, no circuit breakers taken out of that number yet. So that's going to be, as we get costs, we had some circuit breaker pledged in the FY24 budget to that line item, that nothing has come out of that so far. If you think about it, the schools was only open a month, and a lot of that stuff happens in July and August. And then the last one, this is the multicolored one, which I didn't put it on this, on document number 3, I apologize. I don't know if this is just an extrapolation. This is every single person that works for the district, and what would happen if they continue to make what they made till the end of the year. So I don't know if you've seen anything like this before, but it's extrapolation of all the payroll lines till the end of the year. So again, just pick one. I'll pick superintendent. The revised budget was $186,157. The year-to-date expended through September 30th again is $39,000. I'm rounding the numbers off. What the superintendent gets paid a period, that gives you an end-of-year projection that hasn't been paid yet of $146,000. Again, rounding off. The end-of-the-year projection in that line item is $186,000, which is 38 cents more. Again, it's close. Some are close, some are not, and there are various reasons for that. Again, this is where I had everyone as of September 30th. We just went through and did a soup to nuts every single employee list. So when I do December, it may change, but it's kind of like like a closed universe. If you're, again, I might have someone in Indian Head SPED teacher, and they were supposed to be Indian Head Elementary. We found the mistake that I made, correct it for the December report that I'll have coming out. But it's not, it's all of the amounts are on this page. They may not be broken out in the proper format yet, but it will be in the second quarter. The line items may change, and the runouts, again, someone gets hired on October 1st, they're not on this list. Someone left in November. I assume they were going to work all year. They're on the year. So you have to have those caveats in your head when you look at the report. But I thought it was useful to at least try to get it out. Again, the important thing is on page 3, if you look to the bottom at the end where it says budget versus projected, it had a positive 473,000 of all the payroll lines. That's top right after the green. It says total general fund. And boy, that's great, that's fantastic, but you have to remember, again, the limitations of this document, which are athletic coaches weren't in there. They'll be in there on the next iteration of it. Substitute salaries are actual. I didn't run out substitute salaries to the end of the year. And retirements aren't in there yet, any amounts that are paid out to people upon retirement. So I added those things down down the bottom under the legend of what I estimate that might be. And right now, the estimate of that is $690,000. So, and again, this is a moving, rolling document that is going to change every quarter. Again, if every single thing on this page is absolutely correct on June 30th, which if that happened,
Be something. That's not
so
good.
play the number and go to Bora Bora,
Yep.
then we would have a $220,000 deficit in all payroll lines, with lines going back and forth. So I don't know if this is useful, or when you got this something like this in the past, how it worked, but I tried to come up with something that would be something to talk about.
Thank you, John. Any questions? Dawn, yes.
Jeff, just thinking back to last year about out-of-district tuitions, we talked that the state was going to allow billing up 14%. So can you speak to any expenses in that line to out-of-districts, like sped schools? Do you know if we've been getting billed at that
It's been up.
increase?
It hasn't been 14.
Okay.
It hasn't been. And I think because we're part of the collaboratives, most of our kids are at collaboratives, but we haven't seen that 14%.
Okay.
Not yet.
Okay.
You know, and that doesn't mean it has been, but not yet.
Okay. One more question. On document 1 on the revenue, so on the homeless transportation, last year we only got 48,000 and we budgeted 111. So if that comes in like 60,000 short again this year, like what would be your recommendation or your decision on how to fill that gap? Because as a committee, we could move E&D to sometimes fill a funding, because you have to pay for, or we've budgeted that, so.
So I don't know if I'm there yet to say, okay, we're going to come up short, because I think what we can usually see is we can make that up if it's, say, $60,000. That's not a lot.
Okay.
You know what I mean? We should be able.
You'd find in another line item and move it?
You could find in another line
something like
item,
that?
somebody, again, somebody's left in a payroll piece, as John had said, he had budgeted for the teacher that left. You know, the teacher, I'm just going to use a number, teacher was making $98,000 a year, didn't come back from maternity leave, and we fill it with somebody who's making 40. You know, there's my gap, you know, for something like that.
Okay, thank you.
And it's, so we haven't, in 6 years, we haven't we have never had to come to the committee to say, we need to use E&D to offset a budget or a deficit at the end of the year, and I would hope that we would never have to do that.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay, so we have 2 field trip requests. You do have the second one that it just came in, so that's why. But we're going to vote for the first one first, and then I'll talk about the second one. So the first one that is on your agenda is the DECA State Conference, March 7th through March 9th. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second? And so Fred?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
And Glenn?
Yes.
And Dawn?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
And Chris?
Yes.
And me, yes. Okay, the next one is, Chris, you might not have this. This is for Student Council, for their Mass Association of Student Council from March 6th to March 8th down in Hyannis. Can we have a motion to approve that one?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any questions? Okay, Fred?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Glenn?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
And Chris? And myself, yes. Okay. So subcommittee reports. Do we have somebody reporting on the rec?
Chris, do you want to speak to the regional agreement?
Sure, you can always go in the depths, but one day, we went to Mars, Steve Evans and that team, Zoom. We reviewed a list of questions that we had sent to them, their answers to our questions that we had sent to them previously. And had some good dialogue, and it's pretty informative. And our next scheduled meeting is 2/12. And we expect to, go through some of these as a committee. Yeah, I think that's all. That was it.
I think so, Chris, you covered it all.
Okay, thank you. Whitman Middle School Building Committee. Fred?
Sure. So, as you know, we have a project. As of today, we have a project manager and an architect. The contracts were amended and approved. So Colliers will be continuing on as our project manager. And we will have folks from AI3 that designed and built this school carrying on as our architects. AI3 came in budgetary-wise a tad less than what the projection was on what they call the 3011. Colliers, to me, was a little bit of a shock. It did go up. They reasoned it with the amount of oversight that they're required to have here or at Whitman Middle School on the project. So during construction, as well as the demolition phase, they will have to assign somebody daily to be verifying and watching over the rising of the building, all the construction, making sure that the windows are put in properly, signing off on all the work day by day. So there will be someone there on site. MSBA requires a certain level of person and a certain level of experience for that person to be on there. The way they have to submit their contract, it carries that same level of person through the whole project. You know, we'll see what happens when we get to the demo phase, if we can double dip a little bit, so to speak, and maybe have some cost savings there. But we did have some more than sufficient contingency to cover that increased expense. So it'll be no impact, you know, at this time to anybody as far as the project goes and what we were estimating for the overall project cost. We selected to go with the all-electric HVAC system, using for a homeowner ease of understanding something similar to mini splits. They have, you know, big units that handle the transfer with the refrigerant, etc., and then each classroom is zoned itself. There's a lot of good energy opportunities there, and as opposed to the geothermal and the other options that we were given, is the cost difference was enough up front in the overall cost, you know, it made sense to go with those. So that's what the committee had voted, and we'll get together next on February 27th. I think that's pretty, I don't think I missed anything, Jeff?
No, you didn't.
I got a question.
Oh, question.
Fred, is that person that you described, and thank you for all the detail, is that what was considered the old clerk of the works? Or am I thinking a different thing?
Similar, but a little bit more advanced.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
It's a little bit more advanced.
It's been 20 years since building everything,
and they require a certain level of expertise and experience for that person. Where a clerk of the works, you could have had someone that's 2 years out of Mass Maritime.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Very good, thank you.
GC. GC on the job all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So watching over, well, the watching over the GC.
Yeah.
You know, they work for us. They are our eyes and ears for things that they're educated in that we're not. So they're sitting there with the hard hat on, sitting in a trailer, and as they're putting up a door or they're putting up a molding, they're walking through the building multiple times. They're watching how they pour the concrete. They're watching to make sure that the forms are sufficient width. You know, it's something that we would definitively want to have, you know, and to have that oversight. You know, look at what happened with Duval. Okay, we still have the issue with water leaking in. We thought we needed a roof. And it's not the roof, it's the way the flashing was installed. Not saying that the roof doesn't need to be replaced at this time, but it was the way the contractor put in the flashing. And now when everything crops up, it's too late to, you know, look at warranties and go after contractors, etc. And we're stuck holding the bag. It's not right. And we'll be done. It's not going to happen on this project. And MSBA actually, you know, as I said, they've seen enough of that.
So they supervise the GC?
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's a supervisory position, but it's somebody that is well-qualified and well-educated, that sits there, and those folks cost money, so.
Okay, policy subcommittee.
So Chris, I just put policy on because I think everyone probably got an update from MASC or a flyer from MASC that we have to update some policies. So I'll be reaching out to the policy subcommittee to schedule a time just to go through those policies. So no necessarily a report, but just an update.
Okay, and Pilgrim Area Collaborative.
Yes,
Stephen.
last Thursday. Nothing but regular business, really. We haven't started anything delving into, budget, although we do go through it and where we are at certain points. There was supposed to be a check coming to us. I think I reported out about monies that we voted in October. I don't know, but just wanted to alert everyone to that. And we will have, if publications haven't come out, the annual report, I think, was done. There's another piece that we're working on, which is really not voted by the board of directors, but it just talks about everything and anything, including the kitchen sink, about us as a collaborative, what we do. Pilgrim Area, it's a document, it's almost like a standing document of what we do. It's not an annual report, it's not anything like that. So just looking at it and looking at the red markup, first don't let your eyes go crazy, but we'll finish off that next month, first Thursday of the month.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. George, do we have any public comment for the end of the meeting?
Zero.
Okay.
I'd just like to say I'm going to have my job for the second.
I know, but I just had to remind you.
Well done, bud.
Are we meeting next week?
So that's what I was going to bring that up.
Oh,
Do you
okay.
feel the need or not? I mean,
I don't think you'll be ready with anything for next week.
I'd be sharing the same information.
We're sharing the same information, so we're not ready for next week. So there will not be a meeting next week. And the next one will be in February.
February 7th.
7th.
February 7th.
And that's the budget.
Which is the budget.
That
the
is a
open-
budget meeting.
The budget meeting, the public hearing, and that's
on the
all we
budget.
do is budget. We will have a business meeting after the next week, or I think it's the next week.
Okay,
Motion to adjourn?
I will accept
So
it.
moved.
Okay.
I just made it.
Second.
Oh, second, sorry.
Second.
Fred?
Yes.
Hillary? Yes. Michelle?
Yes.
Glenn?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
And Chris? And me, yes.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Hi, Chris.